Have you ever wondered how the world looked before the storm of the Second World War hit? It was a period of relative calm, but under the surface, the seeds of conflict were being sown. This was the interwar period, a time of significant geopolitical, economic, and social upheaval. The Treaty of Versailles, signed after the Great War, intended to ensure peace, but instead, it fostered resentment and bitterness, particularly in Germany. Economically, the world was in turmoil. The Wall Street crash of 1929 triggered the Great Depression, causing worldwide economic distress and hardship. Amid this chaos, totalitarian regimes began to rise, promising stability and order. In Italy, Mussolini's fascist party took power, followed by Hitler's Nazi party in Germany. These regimes, built on a foundation of nationalism and authoritarianism, poised the world for a conflict unparalleled in its devastation. By the end of 1939, the world was teetering on the brink of a conflict that would forever change its face. The year 1939 marked the beginning of the deadliest conflict in human history. The calm that once existed was shattered when Germany, under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, invaded Poland, marking the onset of World War II. The world watched in trepidation as the Axis powers, which included Germany, Italy, and Japan, rapidly expanded their territories, leaving trails of destruction in their wake. The invaded countries bore the brunt of the onslaught, as cities were razed, economies disrupted, and countless lives were lost. In response to Germany's aggression, Britain and France declared war, setting the stage for a global conflict. But the Axis powers were relentless, their military might increasing with each conquest. Despite the efforts of the Allied powers, the Axis continued their surge, spreading fear and devastation across the continents. By the end of 1941, the world was fully engulfed in war, with the Axis powers seemingly unstoppable. 1942 was the year the tides of war began to shift. Throughout the year, a series of monumental events took place that would forever alter the course of the Second World War. In the East, the Battle of Stalingrad raged on. It was a turning point of the war, a brutal confrontation that saw the German Wehrmacht and the Soviet Red Army locked in a deadly embrace. The city was reduced to rubble, a testament to the destructive force of war. But it was not just the physical damage that was significant. The human cost was astronomical. Hundreds of thousands of lives were lost, and the psychological scars of the battle would linger for generations. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the United States, previously a neutral player, was now fully engaged in the conflict. The bombing of Pearl Harbor in late 1941 had drawn them into the war, and by 1942, American troops were mobilizing, bolstering the Allied forces, and providing much-needed resources and manpower. As the war raged on, the Holocaust intensified. Nazi Germany's genocidal campaign against the Jewish people reached new levels of horror. Concentration and extermination camps operated at full capacity, their smokestacks a grim symbol of the mass murder taking place within their walls. The human toll of the Holocaust was staggering, with millions of innocent lives extinguished in the name of a perverse ideology. Simultaneously, strategic bombing campaigns were causing widespread destruction. Cities across Europe were targeted, their infrastructure ravaged, their populations terrorized. From London to Berlin, the skies were filled with bombers and the ground shook with the impact of their deadly payloads. By the end of 1943, the Axis powers were on the defensive, but the human and physical damage was already unimaginable. The tides of war had turned, but the devastation it had wrought was far from over. The world had entered a new, grueling phase of the war, one that would test the resolve of all nations involved. 1944 marked the beginning of the end of the Second World War. It was a year marked by significant battles, strategic decisions, and profound human suffering. In June of that year, the Normandy landings, also known as D-Day, were executed. The Allied forces stormed the beaches of France, marking a significant turn in the tide of the war. This was not a victory without cost, as thousands of soldiers fell on those beaches, their sacrifice a testament to the brutality of war. As the Allies advanced, they uncovered the horrifying reality of the Holocaust. Concentration camps were liberated, revealing the extent of the Nazis' genocide. Millions of innocent lives were lost, entire communities wiped out. The world was left to grapple with the atrocities that had been committed, atrocities that would shape our understanding of human rights and genocide forever. The war in the Pacific Theater reached a devastating climax with the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945. The sheer destructive capability of these weapons marked a new era in warfare, as cities were obliterated and countless lives were lost in an instant. Following these events, both Germany and Japan surrendered, marking the official end of the Second World War. But the ending of the war did not mean the ending of its impact. Casualties were in the tens of millions, both military and civilian. Populations were displaced, forced to leave their homes due to the destruction and political upheaval. Cities and towns across Europe and Asia were left in ruins, their infrastructure destroyed, their landscapes forever altered. In 1945, the war ended, but its scars would forever mark the world. The aftermath of the Second World War was a time of rebuilding, of coming to terms with the horrors that had been committed, and of creating new systems and alliances in the hopes of preventing such a devastating conflict from ever happening again. The Second World War left a world forever changed. This epic conflict, spanning 6 years and involving over 30 countries, unleashed a scale of devastation that is hard to comprehend. Cities were leveled, economies were shattered, and millions of lives were lost or irrevocably altered. Yet from the ashes of this cataclysm, a new world order began to emerge. The establishment of the United Nations marked a global commitment to peace and international cooperation, a beacon of hope amidst the ruins. The war's end also sparked the beginning of the Cold War, a protracted battle of ideologies that would shape the latter half of the 20th century. Simultaneously, the war catalyzed the decolonization of Africa and Asia, as nations sought to assert their independence in a dramatically altered geopolitical landscape. The Second World War was a conflict of unprecedented scale and destruction, a stark reminder of the cost of war that continues to resonate in our world today.